Hello, my name is Ruth Nelson, and welcome to this week's Master Coaches Wednesday Weekly Buzz and our after show Buzz Reaction, both hosted by John Foreman. Our most recent interview with Rick Cole, Hofstra Athletic Director, and Jamie Gordon, Moorhead AD and head volleyball coach, provided us great insight into how 64 teams versus 48 team championship may affect programs, why fundraising is critical, and how can programs begin to sustain their existence and make sure they are not going to be dropped. Both gave great advice since all levels of collegiate volleyball will be practicing and or playing during the high school and club season. It is important for clubs and high schools to work together on having flexible schedules. Our news flash. Many high schools are ending their fall season early because of COVID. Staying up on high school changes, go to nfhs.org and or junior club events, go to jvavolleyball.org. Check out our coachesinsider.com this week as their weekly ads interview provides great information on how programs are returning to play and the issues involved in conducting postseason events. Want to know the updates on 4 conferences that are playing this fall? Head over to volleyballmag.com and listen to Guess Who? Mondays with Mick. Did you know Brian Gimolero participated in basketball, football, and baseball at New Hartford High School in New Hartford, New York? Bob Bertucci participated in basketball, volleyball, and baseball at St. Peter's Boys High School in Staten Island, New York. Nick Haley participated in football, basketball, baseball, and track at Angola High School in Indiana. All will be asking our guests from the ACC how plans have changed and what adjustments they have made. First, let's go to former Olympic coach Mick Haley, who will introduce our guests today.
But first, did you know that Ruth Nelson, besides being a national team player and a national team assistant coach and having coached collegiately at 3 D1 schools with over 550 wins, secretly doubles as a website designer for MasterCoaches virtual clinics and makes Bob, Brian, and I look really good. Now, let me introduce our guests. We have 3 ACC coaches with us today, and we have a full slate of questions. So first, let me introduce Jolene Nagel from Duke, head coach, has been Duke's head coach for 21 years. And Michelle Collier, the Georgia Tech head coach for the last 6 years, starting her 7th year with the Rambling Wreck. And a note on Michelle, because I think this is phenomenal. Michelle had over 2,700 kills in her career at South Florida. I can't imagine swinging that much in practice, let alone in the games. So welcome, Michelle. And then I don't know where our Syracuse head coach is, Leonid Yelin. He's lost in space out there someplace, but as soon as he gets on here, Leonid's
he's on now.
He's on.
Okay, Leonid, yes. You know you weren't going to get off scot-free for missing this call. Leonid's been a head coach for the Orange for the last 9 years. We welcome all you coaches, and thank you so much for being here. I'm going to start right away with the first question for Jolene. How did your conference design the pod system for this year?
Well, I think that kind of evolved. Everything's been evolving in this whole thing, and we've had to stop many times and pivot and make different decisions. And really, it was our senior women's administrators, our SWAs, who were trying to figure out how we could have a season. And of course, with so much information being thrown at us almost daily with changes, they were definitely thinking about the health and safety of everybody in the conference. So I think it really kind of evolved into trying to stay as regional as possible within our conference, and our conference is really spread out. So they kind of divided into a north and then a south and a kind of a more central area to keep us so we don't have to travel as far. And so that North Pod includes Syracuse and BC and Notre Dame and Pittsburgh and Louisville. And then the one a little bit further south is Virginia, Virginia Tech, North Carolina, NC State, and Duke. And then our Southern Pod with Wake Forest, Georgia Tech, Clemson, Florida State, and Miami. And it's not perfect by any means, and it's not, I think this year having fair and equitable stuff is like out the window. We can't even complain about that, I don't think. The fact that we're getting to play is just unbelievable and fun. And, but unfortunately, we're fortunate enough to be in a pod where our travel is not as great. Some of the others still have to go a little bit farther, but it's not as bad as it would be if we tried to play everybody, because our conference has, I believe it's the largest, if not the largest in the country, with 15 teams. And that's a lot of travel involved in everything. So that's kind of how the pods came together. We each have 8 matches. They would like us to get it completed this fall, and that the results of those matches will go towards our spring season as well. And we're fortunate. I mean, a lot of things have to happen, and I maybe can talk about that a little bit later, like on buses, how we're seating differently, and we're all masked, and the bus driver's masked. And
yeah, I think we'll get to that so that you can really give us a heads up on that. The way we'll do this is I'll ask Coach a question. If either of the other 2 coaches want to jump in, just jump in at the end. I have a question for Michelle, though. You have 132 days for your season. How are you using these between fall and spring, and what are the problems associated with having a season over 2 semesters now and having 132 days?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, it's been a challenge for us to figure all out, because as Jolene said, everything's changing by the minute. And so one day we think we have, one structure, and then the next day some decisions are made and we having to adjust and pivot and change. So right now, if it all stays on track, I'll have about 52 days left for the spring season. But we are trying as a conference to apply for a waiver with the NCAA to get some of the days back that we used in the fall, because for a while we didn't know when the conference season was going to start, when the NCAA was, if we were going to have a season or not have a season. And we were still in preseason when they were still trying to decide all that. So, there were a lot of days there that we could have saved had we known a little bit more about how the fall was going to be structured. So we're as a conference going to try to get these days back for our students, because our biggest thing was we wanted a meaningful season. And we were, hoping that the spring was going to happen, but we didn't really know. And I think the ACC did a great job coming up with the pods, putting everybody in a safe position to play. Our ADs and all administration was very supportive of finding the medical protocols and the things. We feel very safe playing. I know my players, they're excited to be back on the court. So right now is we'll go until the end of October. Then we'll probably get a month of 8 hours to not use any of those days, go back to the off season type of schedule. And then we'll have about 8 weeks, 9 weeks in the fall. So we'll have to count back from April 3rd, I believe, which is the last day of the regular season, and see what we get left. Our conference is trying to play a 10-team schedule. So that's the other 10 teams that are missing that we haven't played yet, so that we could play everybody this year. But I'm going to get to that here in a second to get that explained. So as we go with these questions, we've got 12 questions for you guys, so we're going to try to fire them at you real quick. So the next question is for Leonid, though, and how is your conference going to determine the champion to send to the automatic bid for the spring championship?
As previous coaches said, we are so blessed. We're going to play in the fall, and so far we're playing, and all those matches going to count. So when we're going to start playing in the spring, the ACC came up with a formula how they're going to designate, the winner of this conference. I'm not too worried.
Can you explain that to us, how they're going to do that?
So like Michelle already was mentioned, right now we're playing 8 matches in our 3 pods. We're playing 2 matches with each other, and then we're going to play in the spring. We're going to play 10 more matches with 2 other pods we're not playing now. And honestly, who is going to have more winning percentage? That's going to be a winner. If it's That's
Okay.
how we're gonna find who is the winner.
So winning percentage is going to be the key.
Yes.
Okay. Bob, you want to go?
Yeah, I got some questions, relative to the safety. So Jolene, you started to talk a little bit about safety. What's the conference doing for the safety of the players, and how often are they testing the players?
So right now, the ACC protocol, you have to test 3 times a week. And with that, it has to be within 72 hours of competition and within 48 hours after competition. So that's one of the pieces. The other thing is that, of course, there's no handshaking at the match. We don't switch sides on the volleyball court. The balls are sanitized, the floor is sanitized. The ball shaggers are sanitizing balls between plays and wearing rubber gloves and things like that. So there's a lot going on, I think, to make sure that we're trying to do the best we can to mitigate any transmission. And then Duke is doing some things on top of that, and I'm happy to share that a little bit later, but that's generally what our conference is doing right now.
Michelle, what happens if a player tests positive?
Yeah, so right now we've been lucky. We haven't had anybody test positive.
I'm knocking on wood for you.
Yes, I am too. I am too. But right now our protocol is, here at Georgia Tech, we have our head physician, and so he would get notified of that positive test, and then our head trainer, and they notify the player. And obviously the player doesn't have an obligation, like that's her privacy, so she doesn't have to share with the coaches if she doesn't want to, but obviously we are in a safe environment here that, that would be shared with our team, and then that player would be put in isolation and then go through a series of questions and things that we have here at Georgia Tech to figure out contact tracing. And so they go through that test, that questionnaire to just figure out, I think right now it's who they were who have been within 6 feet of them for more than 15 minutes. I think that's kind of the golden rule. And so they figure that out. And then they, at Georgia Tech here, we have housing specific for people that are needed to be in isolation. There are teachers, academic, all that's set up for them. Nutritionally, our nutritionist gets contacted, and then it's going to deliver their meals. And then from contact tracing, then we'll figure out how many other players within our team or, staff and things have been exposed to that one individual. And then from there, we'll most likely go into quarantine, for 2 weeks, and then be able to then get back on the court. But that's pretty much kind of the protocol, is to figure out, who's been exposed. And that's why the mask is so important, to be able to mitigate as much as possible.
Leonid, how about rescheduling or adjusting for canceled games?
So far, we was lucky we didn't have to reschedule any matches. And if it's really happened, just two teams has to decide it, when it would be a good time to do it. It didn't happen with us. I don't know exactly what we would do. We would probably find the time when we have to do this. I think Jolene can answer this question better because she already had one match canceled, and postponed.
Yeah, we certainly did we've had 2 actually. One of them, we were at the site, played on a Friday night. We're not able to play that Saturday night due to unavailable players, and that is not rescheduled. We're still in the midst of that. But the other one we learned about last week for this weekend, that opponent had like 12 unavailable players. So we've all of a sudden found ourselves off, and we might not play again for 21 days or something like that. But the team that wasn't able to play us through the weekend last weekend is not able to play this weekend. So we're right now going to end up playing North Carolina this weekend because they were open and we were open. We're healthy. We're going to play. So that's kind of how that came together for us. We still need to schedule 2 other opponents though. And we will do it going into, hopefully we're going to get one on the weekend we were supposed to play Carolina because now that one's open, and hopefully we get the other one one match or the other one shortly after that. But if we have to go into November, we're willing to go into November because we do think the ACC is going to be able to get us a waiver on number of days. So if we have to do that to be healthy, we'll do that.
Okay, thank you.
Go, Brian.
All right. Leonid, how are you? Haven't seen you in a long time. Nice to see you.
Yeah, you should to come, and see the place where you born and raised. It's
Yeah, no,
right around corner
I know winter is coming.
So far,
I
so
re-
good. You
Yeah.
have a small window to come.
Yeah, I remember when winters back there too well. You talked about the schedule. We talked about it a little bit. What specifically, when are you finished? And then when do you think you'll start up again in the springtime?
I know definitely when we're gonna finish. If it's everything gonna be like it's scheduled, and we don't have to, and we don't have to cancel or reschedule any games, we're gonna finish a week earlier than anyone else. So it's gonna be October 17. It's our last matches against Boston College, if both teams would allow to play. In the spring, we don't know because only what we know is NCAA came up with first day of competition. It's January 22nd. So, but when it's going to be start ACC playing, we will get this information a little bit later. It's a lot of things like, what previous coaches was saying, would we get extra days back to us? Also, when we would allow to start practicing, every school gonna make decision based off, let's say our school, it start January 25th. In the first allowed competition, 22nd, when they're gonna let us come back. I think each school gonna decide it based off what they financially and other things they would think.
But you think you'll be done the last day of your competition in October? You won't practice after that?
We will allow to have 8 hours, which 4 hours it's volleyball and 4 strength conditioning. And so we're planning to do this. Like I said, we can't even plan more than 2 days ahead of us. Every day it could be. That's when we talk to our players, and they all exciting to practicing because the way we're taking this, every time it's a practice, we reminding them could be your last day.
Yeah, Michelle, this year you're going to have, instead of 64 teams in the championship, you have 48. That's going to cause a lot of anxiety for the at-large bids. How do you see that? How do you see your conference being involved, and how many teams do you think you can get as at-large?
So we're working on our AQ language right now. We've been meeting weekly as a coaching group to try to figure it out. Do we want the regular season champion? It's usually who our automatic qualifier is. So right now we're narrowing down on, like Leonid said, winning percentage right now is what we have. And then we're looking at some other layers because of the pods, and you could have people with same winning percentages and all those tie-breaking procedures. So we're looking into some of that stuff. So right now, our spring is going to be really important, I think, for every conference, because when you play within just your conference, it's hard to compare with other teams and compare your competition. So it's great. I think it's great that we're playing now because our conference is being exposed and people are learning about ACC volleyball and about all of the great volleyball that's being played at our conference at a very high level. And I think that is an advantage to us because, it puts us in the spotlight where not a lot of people are out there at the moment. So we are definitely focused on getting our teams to play at the highest level as possible to continue to grow our conference and the national awareness of the great volleyball that's played in the ACC. And then from there, it's going to depend on our spring schedule. I mean, hopefully we'll have at least 2 weekends of non-conference play so we can, play some matchups and kind of compare some conferences and then go from there. But I think, probably last year, I believe we got 5 teams into the tournament. We've gotten 6 teams into the tournament. So most likely our goal, I think, 4 to 5 teams would be ideal for our conference to be in there.
Yeah, I think it's very tough. As a coach, I would have, losing those teams, it makes it really difficult for players and coaches, and so especially how much can you play with other conferences. I think it's going to be a real challenge coming up with a good RPI and all of that. Jolene, this year is unique. It's a good year to be retired, I think. Because what a season. Like Leonid said, you get 1 week to the next, you've all said the same thing. You think you know the rules until you have another meeting, and then who knows the rules. It's unique this year. Let's talk a little bit about what the players are feeling and thinking about through you, Jolene. What are the unique problems that people need to know?
Well, I think the fact that the schedule changes and everything, cancellations, postponements, the team has had to be really flexible, and they have been. They've been tremendous with it. And I think some of the big challenges for us might be the fact that we have a pretty close team. They love to hang out in the locker room together. They love to study in there. They love to just enjoy some time together, and they're not able to do that at all. Not at all. And so they've had to be creative in getting together in open air areas and really, social distancing at the same time, keeping themselves as a close group. So I think that's been a challenge. I think the transition to online learning has been a real challenge for them. It certainly was in the spring, and a lot of it is happening this fall. I think we have an engineering student that's able to go in person, but a lot of ours are online. And then I just think our schedules are unpredictable. But our team has just been fabulous with it, to be honest. I don't know, because there's more unknowns. Maybe we don't have to worry about the rules so much, but without having all the rules all the time, they're not even breaking any rules. I mean, they're just really, I just can't believe how great they're being with all this and managing it, because it could be very stressful, but we've got a really safe group together. And I think that, like, our meetings now, we have Zoom meetings. I just got off with a player on a video review with a Zoom, and team meetings are on Zoom, and with our sports psychologists are on Zoom. And it's just amazing how much has changed. We don't use our locker room at all. We have snacks for players, but they're handed out at practice. And I mean, I could go on and on. I have a bunch of things to maybe share of some of the things we're doing for the mitigation, but I think our teams are handling it beautifully. The only thing I wish they'd do a little bit better was not get so close together when they want to celebrate. But that's something that's been done in volleyball for a long time. But it makes some of us cringe a little bit. So.
Jolene, I wanted to say, that was the question I was going to say. We're going to have a show later on in the year where we bring in players, and we want to give a prize to whoever has the best celebration without touching each other. It would be a great competition. Can you imagine how creative the kids would be?
And they are.
Yeah, but I understand and that's awful that players can't be close with each other. I think that's really tough. I'm going to turn this over to Ruth Nelson.
Okay, guess what? I get to have a little time for the first time in 24 weeks.
Oh, shoot.
Oh, yes.
I'm
sorry,
Okay, Michelle, I'm going to you. All right, tell me this. Do you have any idea whether you'll get to play outside your conference, or will it just be conference during springtime schedule?
So that's something that we're still trying to get it approved by our athletic directors. We are proposing, we would like to play some non-conference matches exactly because of the RPI and how close, how hard it's going to be to determine just what makes one team different than the other besides just their record if you can't play. Because everybody in conference is going to end up being 500 at the end. Our conference is going to be 500. The ACC, the Big Ten, everybody is going to be 500.
Okay.
So then it's really hard to not have those out of conference matches. We're hoping that at least regionally we got some SEC teams that are around us, and so hopefully it's a bus trip that we could make. We would love to play Georgia. That's always a big a big rivalry for us, and
Okay.
you know, it's a fun match, and they're doing really well. And so, you know, those non-conference matches would be very important.
Okay.
But obviously we just want to get to play, right? So it is what it is this year. We're going to have to just deal with it. And like Jolene said, like a lot of it comes from us coaches just setting the tone on, hey guys, we just got to enjoy this, make the most out of it. And for us, it's been really hard because we have zero control. And you know,
Sure.
coaches,
That makes sense. Hey, that's great. I would suggest,
control.
Michelle, what I'd suggest is Leon gets to pick your non-conference match. Michelle, you get to pick Jolene. Jolene gets to pick Michelle. Okay, let's go on to the second question. All right. Jolene, since you're into this mask and so forth, do you wear masks during practice, during competition? Do you personally have to wear it? Do you have to wear it on campus?
We do have to wear it on campus, and we all do. At Duke, we are testing daily.
Okay.
And it's really, I think, proving to pay off a little bit, for sure. So we test daily. Our kids, they may wear masks coming into practice. We wear masks around each other, but once we practice, they don't have masks on.
Okay.
And we haven't worn masks in competition either. The coaches, however, do wear a mask. We wear masks in competition as well. I wear some plastic gloves in practice because I feel like, you know, it can't hurt.
Yep.
Do you have a $100,000 fine for not wearing your mask?
Like a
We
football.
don't have that yet, but we try to be really careful about it. And there's a lot of other things we're doing to mitigate that. You know, you get the floor sanitized, you get the balls sanitized. We don't use our locker room at all. The team does their own laundry as opposed to having somebody do that. And there's not one complaint. Our snacks that we usually have available, they still have them, but we're giving them out in the gym and in space and all that. On bus rides, we're distancing on the bus. We do have to take a brief trip to North Carolina this weekend. We're taking 3 huge vans so we can spread out, and my van's going to have all the windows down and everything too.
Okay. All right, Jolene, I know if we have more questions, we're going to come to you, but we're running short on time. Leonid, I want to get to you. Are you traveling by van during springtime, or do you have any travel restrictions on flying by air?
We don't, because 2 hour trips was the last week we played at Notre Dame. It's no way we can drive over there.
Okay.
And tomorrow we're flying to Louisville. It's even a little bit farther, so we have to fly, unfortunately. We're trying as much as we can, you know, to trying to be safe. So we are wearing masks. Other than that, it's nothing much we can do. We're sanitizing, you know, as often as possible.
Right.
Yeah, but sitting on a plane with a lot of people who we don't know, it's very uncomfortable. But
Okay.
we have no choice.
Yeah, that's great. Hey, listen, thank you 3, and I'm going to go to Mick. Mick is going to close out and hear what we're doing for next week.
Well, I'll tell you what we're doing for next week, but just one thing real quick. If you haven't seen an ACC match yet this year, it is really balanced. Michelle's right. Been some great matches so far. I have really enjoyed watching the ACC competition, and I think that's good. Next week, we're going to examine the Big 12, and we've got Ryan McGuire coming on from Baylor. Michelle, I'm going to tell him that he's only going to be 500 in this fall season, and I want to see what he says about that. And we'll have one other coach on from the Big 12 to kind of balance that out. But we're excited to do this. Back to you, Ruth.
All right. Thank you for coming on. If you guys would like to hang on to listen to all our marketing, you're more than welcome. But if you would like to leave us, no problem.
One thing I want to say, if you're not going to see me next time, it's mean I took Brian's advice and retired.
All right.
I don't see that happening. I don't see that happening.
Okay, here we go. Fall Master Coaches. Virtual clinics are now available for you, your team, or your coaches. Please head over to our Instagram, VD Master Coaches, click on our bio, and click on the virtual clinic link, or you may even scan our QR code that will take you directly to all of our information. A special shout out to Baden Sports, and SNA Sports. Join us next week for Master Coaches Weekly Buzz. Follow us on Facebook, Volleyball Master Coaches, Instagram and Twitter, VB Master Coaches. All of our weekly buzz shows are on YouTube, and you may access these by going directly to the Instagram account, click on our link in our bio. Enjoy listening to leaders in our sport address current issues and trends. Register by November 6th for the 2020 ADCA Virtual Convention and save $50 and get the first opportunity for small group training and career center appointments. Remember, after our host closes our weekly buzz today, you may stay on Facebook Live and join our Master Coaches Buzz Reaction for an opportunity to hear and engage in our most recent talks.